Okay, on our second panel, I am not reading in the order they're seated because my list is this way, so I don't want to leave anybody out. Brett Battles is the first person I'm introducing. Brett was born and raised in Southern California. His parents, who are avid readers, instilled the love of books in him early on. Though he still makes California his home, he has traveled extensively to such destinations as Ho Chi Minh City, Berlin, Singapore, London, Paris, and Bangkok, all of which play parts in his Jonathan Quinn thrillers. Brett's advice to aspiring writers is to quote, I quote, "Write a little every day if that's all you can manage. Athletes practice all the time, improving with each drill. It's the same thing with writing. You can't get better unless you write." Please welcome Brett Battles. The next author we would like to welcome is Robert Fate Bielmeier, whose pen name is Robert Fate. His four books in the Baby Shark series are hard-boiled action-adventure set in Texas in the 1950s. Robert is presently working on book number 5. He's a member of the Writers Guild of America, West, and the Los Angeles and national chapters of Sisters in Crime. Please welcome Robert Fate. Now we have John Lescroart. John wrote his first novel in college and the second a year later, 1 year after graduating from Cal Berkeley. But he did not try to publish either of these books until 14 years later. John performed his own songs for several years at clubs and honky-tonks in the San Francisco Bay Area as Johnny Capo of Johnny Capo and his Real Good Band. He worked as a word processing supervisor at a downtown Los Angeles law firm. Finally, John decided to move back to Northern California to write full-time. The resulting books propelled John into the elite circle of best-selling authors with a large fan base. Thank you so much, John, for coming all the way from Davis. Jeri Westerson is an ardent enthusiast of all things medieval. Mystery Lovers Bookshop in Oakmont, Pennsylvania says, Westerson has full command of prose, plot, and the historical detail of 14th century London. Jeri's mysteries, which are considered medieval noir, feature an enigmatic, flawed, sexy, and very different protagonist named Crispin Guest. He's a disgraced knight turned private eye, sort of like medieval Sam Spade. In addition to being an award-winning mystery author, Jeri also is a public speaker, singer, wife, and mother. Jeri says she herds 2 cats, a tortoise, and an occasional tarantula in Southern California. Please welcome Jeri Westerson. Now we come to our wonderful moderator, Gary Phillips. He's the author of several crime fiction novels, including Bangers and The Perpetrators. He recently edited the anthology Orange County Noir and is on the board of the Southern California chapter of the Mystery Writers of America. Although he's usually considered a mystery writer, Gary also likes comic books. He has written a revival of Jimmy Christopher Operator 5, a pulp-era crime fighter that's been licensed by Moonstone Books. Please give a big hand to Gary Phillips and our second panel.
I guess I Googled it. I'm going to use my indoor voice for our panel. So now I don't have to pronounce John's last name because Pat Meany took care of it. So now I'll just refer to everybody by their first name. But I was sweating. But John did give me a card. I'm going to keep it with me, too. I'm going to have him sign it because it does say Lescroart, opposite of Morquois. So that's pretty good. And I'm going to treasure that. So as you heard from the introduction, and as well as I'm sure some of you have read their books, there's a wide range of settings as well as time periods that our various writers cover. And the other panel talked a little bit about settings, so I'm not going to ask a question about settings so much as I'm really going to ask about why the heck do you write the books that you write? What led you to write the time period or the setting and the characters therein. And I'm going to just work my way down the line. So I guess we'll start with Jeri and work our way down. What led you to the medieval times?
Why medieval noir? Yeah. Well, I was raised by rabid Anglophiles. My parents were heavily into history and English history particularly. I mean, we had conversations at the dinner table about the British monarchy. And when I was a kid, we had a child's version of the Canterbury Tales. So I was probably the only kid in kindergarten who could recite part of the prologue of the Canterbury Tales in Middle English. So, and I thought this was normal, but it clearly was not.
You might have been the only kid in the whole country.
Possibly, yes. So I was just very interested in the medieval history, and the first books that I wrote, all of those books that never got published, were historical fiction, and they were all set in the medieval time period. But some smart former agent of mine suggested I switch to mystery, as that was a better market. And I thought, well, I don't know how to write a mystery, and I'm not going to do that. But more rejections coming in. I thought, well, I think I'm going to learn to write that mystery. So what kind of mystery should I write? Oh, well, let's think here. Medieval mystery. I'll do that. So it was kind of a no-brainer. I was going to write a medieval mystery, but the kind of medieval mystery. I was introduced to the medieval mystery genre by the Brother Cadfael series. Of course, I'm sure you're most familiar with that. But I didn't want to write that kind of mystery. I wanted something with more adventure, with more action, with more violence, with some sex. So, I thought I wanted to write a hard-boiled detective in a medieval setting. So, Brother Cadfael was a monk, and Crispin Guest is no monk. So, it was just sort of flowing from those interests that I had in the Chandler sort of novels, and putting them in the setting that I was familiar and felt more comfortable writing about. So that's the long story.
John?
Well, it was just a need for filthy lucre that drove me to set my stories in modern-day San Francisco. My first book was set in Spain during the Spanish overthrow, well, the death of Franco, frankly. And my second and third books were both set in World War I Europe. And so those books sold a total of about 9 copies all together. And so I decided maybe that's not the commercial vein that I wanted to strike. So I decided to write a modern-day mystery. And it's interesting, you should say, what led you to your time and place. And it was a very specific moment. There's a well-known critic and an excellent writer down here in LA named Dick Lochte. And when I was first starting to publish, I joined the Mystery Writers of America, and I got their magazine, The Third Degree. And The Third Degree, as I was just about to start writing this modern story that I was going to set in Los Angeles and have it be a PI story, the headline of The Third Degree this day in like 1988 read, "Please, no more PIs and not in LA." And I said, good idea. So I decided to really get right back into that mainstream kind of thing and write about an unemployed kind of, loser bartender in San Francisco who eventually became Dismas Hardy, and since then it's been all good.
Brett?
I'm just thankful that the first book I wrote never sold, or I'd be writing urban fantasies about shape-shifting individuals. We all have to have that book that we learn on, or 2 or 3.
7.
You're 7. I'm not calling out names. I was always, I grew up reading science fiction, and I also grew up being a big fan of like Alistair MacLean back when I was a kid. Yeah. And I loved like Ice Station Zebra and Bear Island and all those great books. I'm not sure if I haven't read them in a long time, so maybe they don't hold up as good. I don't know. But I love them, and then I eventually transitioned on to I read some James Higgins, and I read Robert Ludlum, and I really like that kind of adventure and mystery and kind of the thriller-esque aspect of all of that. Plus, I really love, going to exotic locations. I personally love going to exotic locations. So I thought, I've done a little traveling. When I set out to write the first book that I sold, which is the first in the series called The Cleaner, I used some of the locations that I had spent some time in, but I didn't want to just create a character that was just like a James Bond knockoff or a spy knockoff or anything, and I wanted my character to have a little flexibility. So I thought, well, he's going to be like a freelancer in whatever it is he does, I go, well, the thing that has always interested me is what happens after an event. Like, when you see a car accident happen, but what happens to the people after that? And, you hear somebody there's been a shooting someplace and everything. We all hear on the news that about the event, but then what happens later and stuff? And so I started thinking about this, and I came up with a character whose job it is to make the bodies disappear. And that's what Jonathan Quinn is. He's a cleaner. You hire him when you know you're going to be doing some damage, and you're going to need the bodies to disappear. And so he's the one who comes and makes that happen, him and his team. And then he gets pulled into some, he's got a moral center, despite all of this, and he tries to work with decent organizations whenever possible. But he gets pulled into some much larger stuff. That is a very long story to get around to it, so I apologize.
Robert?
Baby Shark, the Baby Shark series, is about a young woman in the 1950s, when you know that young women were called girls. Well, all women were called girls in the 1950s.
And I missed that.
Well, and they were. It wasn't enough that I was 70 years old and deciding to write a first novel. That wasn't enough of a challenge. I decided to write for a young woman as well. And I set it in the 1950s in Texas because, frankly, anything can happen in Texas, and everyone there carries a gun. And so I thought, well, if anything can happen in Texas and the space is limitless, and I have a young woman who I wanted to be in contrast to her time, which is to say the 1950s, in which that was a very edgy time for women. It was after the Second World War, and they were told to go home after working in the factories and earning the same money as men, and it was not an easy time. And I thought, well, this would be a good time to set for a young woman who surprises people by her actions. And when something awful happens to her, something horrible happens to her, and she is then taught by men who take violence in their stride how to protect herself, because her goal was to never be afraid again after the abuse that she was subjected to and watching her father murdered and so on. And that set the tone for a series of books about a young woman who doesn't take any crap. And that's basically what we have here. I wanted to write about a woman because I see strength in women I don't see in men. I wanted to write for a woman because it was a time in our history when women were growing wings but really hadn't started to fly yet. It just seemed to me to be good material for having some objection to the crime that was happening around her. So that's how Baby Shark was born and why I chose Texas in the 1950s.
All right. Go buy his books. Thanks for coming. All right. You guys have all touched a little bit on this, and one of the questions, in fact, one of the questions I sent you guys previously is, in this day and age of video games and first-person shooter and whatever all else, and I guess all the various permutations of Resident Evil and all those other stuff that my daughter watches, which just I find ghastly, which apparently doesn't give her pause at all. I mean, Anyway, all that's to say is that how much is too much, and what do you put on stage, which is to say, what do you put in the book for the reader to experience vicariously, and what is implied, or does none of this matter now, and does everything go? And we'll start with Robert, and we'll work our way back this way.
I've had reviewers say that they had never reviewed and had to like a murderer. And Kristen Van Dyke, who is Baby Shark, finds herself having to kill. And so a woman came to me to my table today and said, I read Baby Shark and it empowered me. And, well, why wouldn't it? Kristen takes guns and kills guys.
So whoever you are out there, the cops are waiting.
That's what a movie producer said to me. He said, I like strong female protagonists who take guns and kill guys. And I said, well, so the book is empowering, but there's the line you have to draw, I think, as a writer, regardless of the time and regardless of what your daughter and my daughter watch and listen to and so on, is that there are things that need to be said, and I think all of us want it to be real. I mean, we want it to be real. If you're reading this, you don't want to say, oh, I wouldn't have it. No, you've got to say, oh my God, that could happen to me. You want it to be real, but at the same time, you don't have to have your face pushed into it. So I think that you just draw the line there. You're careful with it, but you still want the strength of it. If you have, I write hard-boiled. So the violence is there, and I want it to be strong, and you know what it is. If you're going to read it, you know what it is. So, but I think that it's just a matter of taste.
Mr. Battles, do you have good taste?
I wish I had come up with a line, and said it when it was coming through, that, I find an inner strength with women a lot, that's much better than men. It's nothing like playing to your audience. Right? So for my next series, right, just this second. On topic here. Obviously you would think, in my books there'd be a lot of stuff because I deal with bodies and violence and everything. But I don't go over graphic. I think you show what is necessary to tell the story. And I'm not writing a Quentin Tarantino novel. I'm more concerned about the characters and the story and the plot that way. If it serves a story, yes, but I'm not going to, just like Robert said, I'm not going to overdo it. There's no need to overdo it. You show what is necessary and move on, because that's what storytelling is about.
John.
Well, I think I'll agree that women are better.
Oh, baby!
Okay,
Just in every way.
I'm taking over this
set
panel.
a tone.
Right, that's right. That's right.
We've got a thematic unity here that we're trying to keep going.
That's right. Trying to keep going until they read his book. Then they say, "Wait a minute."
Yeah. Okay. No, taking nothing away from what I just said.
That's right. That's right.
Really, I think it's a matter of it comes down to the prose. I wind up addressing this topic quite often at mystery conferences or at writers' conferences, and it comes down to what I call avoiding the yuck factor. And it applies as well. It applies equally well to mayhem and violence as it does to sex. You really don't want to read about cultish calves. For example, even though often they belong to women, and of course they're good by that reason alone. But I would try to avoid words like cultish calves. I'd also tend to avoid the word snot, for example. If somebody's shot in the back of the head and snot comes out his nose, I would probably not write that. I would go, we can probably all imagine the aftermath of getting shot in the back of the head. So to me, it really comes down to just editing and prose style, and avoid the yuck factor. If you read that and go, oh, yuck, then you don't want to leave it in, and you know that's basically what I take out.
Well,
as a lesser evolved male.
As a woman.
Yes. Yes.
Hear me roar. Well, the choice Anglo-Saxon phrases that we all know and love came from this time period, but they weren't really used in that way, so I don't get to drop any F-bombs because that wasn't historically accurate. So they're not in there. And I had to realize what my audience was, and people who read medieval mysteries, even though this is a hard-boiled, a little grittier, people who read medieval mysteries don't want a lot of severely graphic violence. There's some violence, and not graphic sex. So if you want graphic sex, you have to read my gay mystery series. And I'll happily talk to you about that afterwards. But you have to gauge your audience, and it's also the sensibilities of the Middle Ages too. I mean, these people weren't prudes, but there was also a certain sensibility involved. So you fade to black when there's sex, but you do cosh people upon the head and stab them and all those wonderful things. But we don't have to go into all the details of the entrails and how they were sparkling in the sunlight. And all that.
Nice.
Very good. A couple of times now we've bandied about several terms. Several terms sort of get thrown around a lot in mystery writing and in the genre itself. And I'm just kind of curious. I want to get a read from the panel. Is there a distinction, or to some extent these things overlap, but what is hard-boiled versus thriller? Well, let's start with you, Jeri. I mean, you mentioned hard-boiled. So what is hard-boiled?
Well, to me, it's going to have the tropes. There's certain tropes. A hard-boiled detective, that is, he's sort of a loner. He's a hard drinker. There's tough talking. There's the femme fatale. There's sort of the underbelly of society. So that's sort of what I was taking with me when I was, and that really translates quite well to the Middle Ages. Surprisingly, it translates to any age, really. There could be a Victorian noir, I suppose. So that's where I was coming from with that. I know that there's other, and it's called a medieval noir, but it's really not noir because we can go into a discussion of what noir is. Noir is a little like porn, you know it when you see it. But it's hard to describe sometimes. But medieval hard-boiled just didn't sound as good, so we went with that. But hard-boiled, yeah, to me it was all about, it was sort of more about the character and what was happening to him and around him, rather than, I don't know, any other sort of milieu. But
and
that's
John,
where I was sitting.
John, are there hard-boiled elements in thrillers? And what the heck is a thriller?
Well, a thriller is basically it's a mystery with a little bit of more pages.
It's a mystery that pays more.
This whole genre discussion I find a little bit strange because there are so many now subdivisions of genres. Right. And I think what we're all trying to do is just tell an original story in a way that it hasn't been told before, and to try to get something that's puzzling, that's solved, or that introduces some interesting people who do interesting things. And I was talking to a guy yesterday whose wife just got her first deal. Actually, she got 5 deals all at once. Holy crap! And she's I was going to say a first novelist, but she's a first serial quintuple novelist.
Oh my God!
You just want to kill those
You know
people.
what I did? I wanted to kill him, in fact. Not even her. I would have killed her if she was there, but she wasn't. Wow. But what happened was she got five books ordered under her own name by 3 different houses. Holy and one of them wanted a genre, vampire book, one wanted paranormal mystery, one wanted romantic suspense, and there were 2 others that I don't remember right now.
And they were all the same book.
And I'm going, what? I said, don't you want to write like a book? Isn't a book trying to get out of you? And she goes, no. I mean, the husband goes, no. My wife just goes, no. I just want to keep writing and get paid, so I'm going to write them all.
Wow.
And I really think that's kind of what's driving a lot of the industry right now is this whole, well, if you can fill this little tiny niche, then we figure out how to market it.
Right.
And so the niches are getting ever and ever smaller. And I don't think, if I can be so bold, I don't think that's a great direction. I think people, writers like us, and we do this already, write what we want to write and what moves us. Like I really want to make the point, for example, that women are better than men.
Right.
And I go out of my way in every book.
If you missed it before, let me just reiterate.
I'll vote for that.
Yeah.
So is it true, Brett, that we're not to put you on the spot about being niched to death, but really don't these categories overlap anyway?
Oh, absolutely. But first, not to beat a dead horse, just so that you were aware, the second lead in my series is a woman. She is a tough as nails single mom.
That's it.
All right.
There we go. All right. That's it.
Anyway, what was the question? Yeah, of course they overlap. I mean, let's be honest, and I said this at the table during lunch, and somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but it's true. Every book is a mystery. I mean, it doesn't. I mean, Catcher in the Rye is a mystery. I mean, for the reader, you're learning, and things are revealed as you're going through. The best thrillers are mystery. Well, I mean, if every book's a mystery, then all the thrillers are mystery. But they have a good mystery at their heart. So yeah, there's overlap. Some of them are more hard-boiled. Some of them are a little bit more international. Some go into a little bit of the spy. Some are detective. But it's the story that really matters, ultimately, and the characters, and the strong women.
A segue to
Your turn.
I know.
Is Robert the guy who started this?
Yeah, I believe so.
I
Brett
think you ought to
Battles
write a
had-
new series, Robert.
Brett Battles has timing, doesn't he? Well, I think of hard-boiled in reference to my writing about my female protagonist.
You have a female protagonist?
I do.
I've heard he does.
She deals with the criminals, and I think that some books deal with quilting, and that's fine, and they're wonderful books, right? I think I write
Hard-boiled quilting. I want to see that.
I think I write cozies with a few brutal murders.
There you go. That's it.
Because the characters are likable characters, but basically my good people are always having to deal with criminals, and it's that keeps it hard boiled, because that's another lifestyle. That's another, a criminal. What makes them interesting is that you don't know what the hell they're gonna do next. You don't know, and it's liable to be violent, and it's liable to be bad. So I think that's what makes the hard-boiled in my books is that she's always having to deal with criminals, and to do that you have to be tough.
But
Even if you're a woman.
The whole genre thing is a marketing thing. The publishers want that. They want something. They want a place on the bookshelf to put it. So if you've invented a genre, maybe you have your own place on the bookshelf. I don't know.
That's it.
Well, yeah, they don't know how to market otherwise. They don't know what kind of, which is ridiculous, but I mean, they don't know what effort to put behind it.
But it is. But I take the point, John's point, which is right that more and more you got finer and finer niches being sort of just put out there, and
there's going to be a vampire cat in my next one.
That's
so.
it. Now you're getting ahead of the curve, Jerry. Now we're talking.
That would
I'm
be a
having a
female
lesbian cat.
That's right.
Lesbian
a
vampire
lesbian
cat.
vampire cat. Now we're rolling. All right, I see we're almost at time. So, do we have a couple of questions from the audience?
Yes.
That's because
We're
I
not
like
gonna.
to keep that mysterious veneer, going. And I just tell you real quickly. So, my latest book is a happy story about a homeless Vietnam vet who has to look for his disabled buddy who's disappeared from Skid Row, and you can tell that fun and hijinks ensue from that.
Are there any women in this book?
I was just thank you, Jerry. I was just getting that. In fact, there's 2 women in this book.
Holy
2
moly.
strong women. One is a young woman who's a tenant organizer, and another one is a fading beauty queen, a sex pot from the movies from the 60s, who's a kind of a love interest for the main character.
Who's become very strong.
Who's coming very strong.
Right.
From drinking gin. There's one in the back.
Way back there.
Way back there?
Over here.
Gin is
Over
good
here?
for you.
I was born and raised in Oklahoma, had relatives in Texas, and I knew when I crossed the border and went into Texas, it was different.
Is Padmini coming up? So you got time for one more now, doggone it.
One back there.
Way back there?
Way back there.
Way back there.
Yeah.
Well, I'm the moderator, damn it. Does Larry King answer these questions? No, he does not. No. That's it. I'm done. And on that note, one more? All right.
2 more.
Yeah.
2 more. Here we go. Wait.
Are there any producers out there?
Yeah, right.
We all hope so.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
I've actually got something happening that I would be happy to share with you. It's not a done deal yet, but it looks reasonable. I have we're pitching to some networks next week. The Lawrence Fishburne production company has optioned the Hardy books, and they're
good.
looking at having it come out as the Hardy Chronicles, a television series, which hopefully will be running for the next 10 or 15 years.
That's right. Exactly. That's right. That's right. Because every other week will be a strong woman as a guest star.
It's going to be the Hardy Women series.
The Hardy Women series. That's right. That's right. John's got to make some adjustments going home tonight. One last question.
Or not.
Or not.
We scared them.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
I was wondering about doing a variety of scenarios and the research that goes into that. Do you have other people helping you research, or do you each do pretty much all of your own research?
Well, I do all my own research, and I talk to a lot of people.
Yeah. Most of my research, I mean, the majority of it is traveling. So I do
a
that.
lot of
I tend to
restaurant
do that myself.
We hate you, Brad. I spend a lot of time in libraries, in archives, university libraries mostly.
I'll catch a lot of heat for this, but I talk to a lot of strong women.
I think that's the last line,
That's it.
right?
That's it, baby. And with that, thank our panelists. It's going to last. Yes.
And here she is.
Strong woman panel. Yes.
That was great. Thank you so much, gentlemen, and Jerry.